All righty. Perfect, guys. Well, thank you again to each one of you guys that took the time out of your evening to join us. We are super excited to present tonight's NAMIGO Talks that step out of the dark and into the light. This is going to include a gentle movement intro exercise for participants by a professional yoga instructor, info and facts about perinatal mood and anxiety disorders by a certified therapist, a visual compassion and mantra exercise by one of our therapist presenters, as well as getting to hear about Nancy's own journey with postpartum depression and anxiety. All four of these presenters are going to really just play a special part in this evening. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an intro, but they're going to be able to share a little bit more about each one of them and what it is that they do. So first we have Nancy Layish. I want to make sure that's the correct way to say that. She is a licensed clinical social worker and a perinatal mental health certified counselor. She's also the co-founder of the Central Florida Postpartum Alliance, which is a 501c3 nonprofit, provides advocacy, education, and support services pertaining to perinatal mood disorders like postpartum depression, anxiety, perinatal PTSD, and birth trauma. Oh, and I've got Erin jumping in here as well. We also will have Jennifer Whitfield. She is an LMHC-S registered play therapist, certified in infant and family mental health, as well as trained in perinatal mental health. She's been working with children, families, parents, and adults for over 10 years with a private practice located in Altamont Springs. We have Sammy Kay, who is a licensed mental health counselor and certified doula, extensively trained in perinatal mental health and couples counseling. She has a passion for helping people, but really a special calling for working with mothers, couples, and families. She's there to help them gain insight, communication skills, coping strategies, and conflict resolution tools, all while supporting each family unit with their own precise needs. Her overall goal is to really offer a healing space for couples and families to not only explore and improve, but to really thrive and enjoy their relationship together. And then last but certainly not least, we have Kathy Harris. She's a registered prenatal postnatal yoga teacher. She has 2 children, and as a parent herself, she's super passionate about supporting families. She believes that yoga empowers both expecting and new parents to discover their innate wisdom and strength. As a mother myself, I am incredibly excited for tonight. We are super thankful, super grateful for you guys being here. And without any further ado, I am going to turn it over to you guys to get us started. Oh, Nancy, you're still muted.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Whitney, for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. And it is such a privilege to be here to talk about this very important topic that many people suffer from or trying to cope with, but they're doing it alone and feel very isolated. As you said, Whitney, my name is Nancy Layish. I am a licensed clinical social worker here in Orlando or in Florida, and I am also perinatal mental health certified. When I wanted to define what perinatal is, perinatal mental health, basically that's mental health that occurs within the pregnancy timeframe as well as the postpartum timeframe. And we define postpartum as the timeframe from birth up to 1 year. And so a lot of these issues and problems that we see pertaining to perinatal mental health can relate to trauma, anxiety, depression, and there are others which Jennifer will talk about a little bit later. I became very passionate about this topic as Whitney mentioned. I experienced postpartum depression, anxiety with the birth of my child almost 30 years ago. I felt very isolated, and I will tell more about my experience and my story a little bit later on, but suffice it to say that I felt very alone, and I felt like I was in a dark hole and with nowhere out. As I began to recover, I realized just how many people suffered from perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, and it became my mission to bring awareness and to bring light, so to speak, to this dark topic, and to invite people to engage in advocacy, discussion, education, and ultimately resources and support, because PMADS have a ripple effect, not just on the mother or the father. Believe it or not, their fathers and adoptive families and other partners do experience PMADS as well. Regardless who is actually experiencing the PMAD, it affects everybody around them. So like I said, it became my mission to engage this topic and bring it out into the light, into our community. And I partnered with several other like-minded professionals, and we became a nonprofit in 2020. And I'm also the director of outreach, and these wonderful ladies presenting are part of my team. And it's been an amazing experience to be able to share with them these presentations. And just thank you again so much for the opportunity to bring this even into greater awareness into our community.
Absolutely. We are thrilled to have you guys, and saying that even is an understatement. So we're very excited for tonight.
Also, I have 3 children. That's the greatest accomplishment. So I meant to add that as well.
All right, Nancy. There we go. Kathy, all set?
Yeah, yep. I was just going to jump in.
Yep, perfect. You guys go right
Hi,
ahead.
everyone. Yes, my name is Kathy, and like Whitney, she introduced, I'm a yoga teacher, but I specialize in prenatal and postnatal yoga. So I do teach other types of yoga, but that is my specialty. That's my passion. I have a passion for supporting parents. I went through postpartum depression myself, and that is why I am so passionate about holding this space for parents. And I believe that yoga can be a very powerful healing modality. I know it's not the only healing, but it's just one of those layers that you can offer some space for people to go on a journey of self-acceptance, really. Because when you're on your yoga mat, you are there exactly as you are. You don't need to be anything else. And it's really all about observation without judgment. So that's what I love about the practice. And that's what I offer to prenatal parents and postnatal parents. And today we'll be doing a little bit of that. So if you'd like to join today, I'm not sure, I know that we were just jumping in. I'm not sure who's going to practice with me or not, but if you're even in a chair, you can do some of the movement in a chair, or if you want to go down to the floor that way I am, you can do that as well. I did mention in the chat that if you grab a throw pillow or a folded blanket, that would make it easier for the practice. And I will be reading a little waiver. This is just, I know it's a gentle practice, but I do like to read this statement first. And then if you will be joining us tonight, all you have to do is initial in the chat. Just put your initials, and that acknowledges that you heard the waiver. So the waiver is: this presentation will offer a short and gentle yoga practice. Participants take full responsibility for their own health and any illness or injury that may occur. Students cannot and will not hold instructors or any employers or affiliates responsible in any case of illness or accident during this yoga practice. So something we have to always say and put in there, but if you will be practicing with us, if you can just initial in the chat box. And I will be going to the back there. I'm gonna pin my video too, so that way everyone can see me, and I'll unpin afterwards as well. All right, now if you are joining me, grab your folded blanket or maybe your throw pillow. I come back here in my little studio at home. You can also, like I said, sit in your chair if you have a comfortable chair that you're in. Now, in that comfortable seat, soften your facial expression and go inward for a moment to connect with the inner realm, the inner space. Now you can simply soften your gaze or close the eyes completely and pay attention to your posture. If you're seated on a folded blanket or a pillow, that's extra space will allow you to sit taller. Plug in your sits bones into the floor and lean your heart back until your shoulders are over the hips. Lean back in the ears so that the ears are over the shoulders, and notice that extra length in your spine. Soften your tailbone. Reach up through the crown of the head. Invite a sense of ease to wash over you. And now observe your breath. Become aware of when you inhale and when you exhale. Moving into an equal part breath or samariti breath. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Continue this counting. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 4. And as you count your breath, notice how much space you create within, using the full capacity of your lungs. Continue following your own rhythm with this intentional breath. Now release the counting. Return to your natural breathing pattern. And continue to observe your inhale and exhale. Observing the breath is the fastest way to come into the present moment. Now, if the eyes are closed, you can slowly let some light in. And take the hands behind you, move in the legs. If you are seated on the floor, you can extend the legs forward, maybe tick-tock the ankles a bit, bounce in the knees, get some blood flow. And even if you're sitting in a chair, you can do this as well. Circle through the ankles, and then reverse direction. Now return to a comfortable seat. Fingertips to the mat or to the side of your chair. On the inhale, lift and move with your breath. Synchronize breath and movement. Exhale, float the arms down. And as you inhale, lengthen through the waist, soften the tailbone, reach up to the crown of the head. Exhale, float the arms down. 2 more. Inhale, reach. Exhale, lower. On the next inhale, lift your right arm up. And on the exhale, lateral side bend. You can bend that bottom elbow, or you can extend the arm out. Soften the shoulders. Slowly come back up. Reach in the opposite direction. Lift your left arm up. I'm mirroring you. And again, reach to the side for a lateral stretch. Slowly come back to your midline. Hands are on the knees or the thighs. Rotate the shoulders. Inhale up and draw a circle back. 1 breath, 1 movement. Inhale up. Exhale back. A couple more rotations in the shoulder heads. And now release the shoulders. Take your right arm across your body to the opposite knee. You can also bring it around the rib cage as well. Take your hand behind you, your left hand behind you. Inhale, lift through the crown of the head, and on the exhale, a gentle seated twist, looking over that left shoulder. Continue breathing. Don't hold the breath. On the inhale, extend, and on the exhale, take advantage of that exhale to twist a little deeper, perhaps into the lower back or the upper spine. Gently unwind from this twist into the opposite side. So you're taking the hand across now, the opposite hand, left hand, inhale, extend, exhale, spiral. Use your breath to help you find more space within. Gently shift your gaze forward, your shoulders forward, and then the palms. Now come over onto hands and knees into a tabletop position. And you can modify this on the chair as well. You won't be on the hands and knees, but you can do the same movements with your spine. So palms underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. If this is a lot of pressure on your wrist, you don't have to have the wrist directly underneath the shoulders. You can take it a little bit forward, and that's okay. Cat-cow. On the inhale, extend the chest forward, shoulders back, look between the eyebrows. You can lift your tailbone, but if there's some lower back pain, you can extend that tailbone back instead of up. So back towards the back wall. On the exhale, reverse, round the upper back, separate the shoulders, push the floor, soften the tailbone, and release. Inhale, look up. Lift the chin, exhale, round the spine. If you want a little extra lower back stretch, you can lean back towards the heels. And find the pace that works for you. Notice that pressure underneath the palms, the undulation of the spine. Check in with how you feel and listen for the answer. One more cycle. Return to all fours and come to child's pose. So a gentle child's pose with knees apart, big toes touch. Anchor back into the hips and rest here to rest the lower back. Or you can come down to the forearms, or maybe all the way down to the forehead. Anchor into the mat. Allow the floor to hold you, to support you. Become aware of your breath again. Perhaps you take those 4 counts in and 4 counts out. A couple more cycles of breath in child's pose, Balasana. And slowly shift out of this posture. Extend the arms. Gently elevate through the hips and readjust your knees so that they're underneath the hips or beneath the hips again. One more movement, more than a posture, on all fours. On the inhale, make a full body circle forward to the right side and to the back. I'm starting small with these circles, but you can play with them. Go as large or as small as you want. I'm going a little deeper now. Acknowledge how you're feeling tonight and make the proper adjustments. So some days we're feeling a little bigger. Some days we want to go a little smaller. Acknowledge those sensations that you're feeling in your body and allow them to guide you. Inhale forward now to the left side, reverse direction. Full body circles. Now pause. Pause at the center. And walk the hands back towards the knees. Readjust to a comfortable seat. Maybe you're folding that blanket again or sitting on the throw pillow. Returning to that observation within. Notice again how you're sitting. Allow the sits bones to plug into your seat, to the chair, or to the floor. Lean back so that the shoulders are over the hips. And place the hands either with the palms down to ground your energy, or if you'd like to receive energy, palms up towards the ceiling.
But I was on dead cells already died today, so I finished the mac and cheese last night.
Notice your breath again. And come back to that equal part breath. 4 counts in. 4, 3, 2, 1, and 4 counts out. 4, 3, 2, 1. If you'd like to play with extending the breath, you can do 5 counts in and 5 counts out. Notice what happens when you bring all your awareness to the breath. What happens to your mind and to your body? Release the counting. Return to your organic breath. And I'll place the hands, palms together in front of the heart with the thumbs touching the breastbone. Another moment of observation without any labels, simply noticing how you're doing. Now soften the hands or on the knees or the lap. Your eyes are closed, blink them open. And slowly come back. That was a small, gentle little practice, little sequence really, not a class, but it's my offering for you today to just have that reconnection with your inner self. And often if we could do that every day, it'd be really, really helpful for everyone, but especially anyone struggling with mental health illness or mental health disorders. So, all right, thank you, everybody. I will unpin my video now.
That was awesome, Kathy. I'm super relaxed.
That's awesome. Good.
And again, everyone, thank you for being here. I'm Jennifer Whitfield. I'm going to go into kind of going through perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and what that looks like. I think that was a great intro into that to kind of get us relaxed. And I was thinking the same thing, Kathy, like if we just practice this 5 or 10 minutes a day, like how more relaxed we would Whitfield. Just as a side note, you know, there isn't anything that any of us are going to be talking about that should be too triggering, but, you know, we all come with our own experiences and own places of our journey. So I always say, just notice what you notice, that if any discussion gets to be too much, or you need to take a minute or take some deep breaths or turn off your camera, you know, that's completely fine. Again, I'm a licensed mental health counselor, I'm a registered play therapist. I'm trained in perinatal mental health and also infant family mental health. So I've been working with families and parents and kids and teens, if you count grad school, over 10 years. So I love it. I'm super excited to be here. So again, I'm going to kind of just quickly go through perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, just again, kind of as a side note, that symptoms can look very different for different people. Again, we all have different experiences. This is just kind of a general overview for time's sake that I'm going to kind of quickly go through. I know we're going to do question and answers at the end. So if anything comes up while we're listening, or you have a question, you can maybe just jot it down or throw it in the chat or jot it down, and then we can come back to it later. So, you know, Nancy started by sharing earlier that, you know, we're here to kind of spread awareness and have these conversations, because we know that these conversations do not happen as often as they need to be. Maternal mental health. Again, so again, I'm glad that everyone's here with us tonight. So perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, there's a couple different categories. Again, I'll kind of quickly go through each. We have postpartum depression. I know we hear about that probably most often. Postpartum anxiety, postpartum panic, postpartum OCD, postpartum psychosis, postpartum bipolar disorder, and postpartum PTSD. Again, I'm sure most of us here have heard of postpartum depression, but there are many other disorders that often get overlooked, which again is why we're here. So to start, it's reported that about 1 in 7 moms experience postpartum depression, about 1 in 10 dads. I know Nancy kind of touched on that earlier. And postpartum depression is the number one complication of childbirth compared to medical conditions. And it's probably safe to assume that those statistics are higher, because we know that people don't often report, you know, having depression or anxiety. And we know that there's holes in our screening tools and healthcare, that a lot of things get overlooked. So again, it's safe to assume that those numbers are probably higher. I'm sure most of us have also heard of baby blues, which is very different than postpartum depression. So again, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through each. Baby blues lasts about 2 weeks. It peaks about the 3 to 5 day mark. Obviously, having a new baby brings up a lot of change, a lot of hormone changes. You know, you're recovering. There's all kinds of things going on. You might feel more tearful, on edge, depressed feelings, racing thoughts, obviously sleep and eating disturbance. But typically things are getting better. It doesn't, you know, those depressive symptoms aren't lingering. Things are getting better. If it's lasting over those 2 weeks, then that would typically not be baby blues. Again, all parents experience, we get stressed, we get impatient, we get angry. I'm sure we've all had those days where we locked ourselves in the closet or the bathroom and we're just feeling really overwhelmed. Again, there's a lot that goes with parenting, but if that, again, those depressive symptoms are not dissipating, that anxiety is getting worse, then it would be encouraged to speak with a healthcare provider, look for a therapist, look for resources. So again, postpartum, I'm going to go through each. Postpartum depression, again, I'm sure we hear about that one the most. Having more depressed feelings, depressive symptoms more days than not, loss of pleasure, maybe being really withdrawn, feeling like I can't get up and take care of the baby, my baby would be better without me, kind of in a fog, difficulty concentrating, and I won't say often, but a lot of times there can be suicidal thoughts or harm to baby, not always, but it can. And then somatic complaints, so maybe stomach, headaches, a lot of different things that can come. Postpartum anxiety, so that's going to look like, you know, feeling on edge, really nervous, intrusive thoughts, racing thoughts, feeling like I can't concentrate, difficulty sleeping and eating. And again, a lot of that anxiety is centered around baby and baby's health. You know, I might have very rigid, you know, sleep schedule or feeding schedules. And if anything is kind of out of that, then I have the sense of panic, or that anxiety rises. Postpartum panic disorder, again, kind of goes with anxiety. So I might have full-blown panic attacks. I might feel that panic, or I have the panic attacks where, and again, this can vary from person to person, but typically, you know, I'm racing heart, shaking, feeling like I'm going to faint. Maybe I do faint. Some people vomit, feeling like I'm going crazy, feel like I'm dying. And again, a lot of that anxiety is centered around baby and baby's health. Postpartum OCD, again, I think this is one that happens more than we realize, but often goes overlooked. But obsessive compulsive disorder. So OCD, the O is the obsession. So those are the reoccurring thoughts, intrusive thoughts and urges that come in, and then those compulsions are the behaviors, those repetitive behaviors that I do. So I do the compulsions in order to satisfy those obsessions and to reduce the anxiety around those thoughts. So a lot of anxiety, shame, guilt. A lot of times with postpartum OCD, there's a fear of harm coming to baby, or fear that I'm going to harm baby. And important to note with OCD is that those thoughts cause distress. So it's good that they cause distress. So I don't want these thoughts. I don't know why I'm having these thoughts. I don't like these images flooding my brain. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. So those thoughts are ego dystonic. So some quick examples might be like the repetitive washing the bottles. I'm constantly washing the bottles. They're never clean enough. I just got done washing the bottles, but the Clorox wipe is right there, and now they're contaminated, and I'm feeding the baby, and I just keep having these thoughts that the bottle's contaminated and I'm harming the baby. Or, I'm having thoughts or images that I might drown my baby. Again, I don't want to, but those are the thoughts that are coming up. So I give up that bath duty because I can't, those thoughts are too intrusive. So the next would be postpartum psychosis. And so the difference with this is if someone is experiencing psychosis, there's that break of reality. So they might have those thoughts of harm coming to baby, but they don't cause distress. They make sense. So I might be getting messages through the TV or the computer, or God is talking to me, or I'm getting these messages to do these different acts. And again, they make sense. There's that break in reality. So somebody might appear very disoriented, flight of ideas, rambling thoughts, hyperactive. So with psychosis, it is a medical emergency. Hospitalization, medication management is necessary. No, this doesn't mean that, they're sent away and the baby's taken, or it's just imperative to make sure that the parent is safe and that the baby's safe. And so again, hospitalization is necessary temporarily. Postpartum bipolar disorder. So you have that really kind of fluctuation in mood. So really high highs, really low lows, really depressed 1 minute, and then I might be really hyperactive or impulsive or full of energy the next. A lot of times you see irritability, like kind of outrage and a lot of anger, or I might be, again, really impulsive, or I'm going out shopping, or, I got this flight of ideas and energy, and I'm cleaning the house at 2 a.m. And sometimes with bipolar disorder, psychosis can occur. I think it's about 20%. And a lot of times medication management is necessary as well. And then we have postpartum PTSD. So with PTSD, two things, well, more than two things, but you might have somebody who experienced a trauma through the birthing process or through the delivery, or maybe I had a trauma before, and now I'm getting re-triggered. So, a lot of things can happen. It could be, an emergency C-section. My birth plan wasn't followed. I had a traumatic birth, maybe baby's in NICU, or there's a medical issue. Again, and it's that perceived trauma, because what's a trauma to me might not be a trauma to you. Or again, maybe there was a traumatic experience before, if there was sexual abuse or emotional abuse or physical abuse, and now I'm being re-triggered. Because, whether it's a vaginal delivery or a C-section, you're in a very vulnerable, intimate position. You feel like you're out of control. I have people checking me. So again, I might be re-triggered by going to doctor's appointments, being, evaluated, being asked questions. So again, a lot can come up. So I might be on edge. I might have nightmares. I might feel like I'm reliving that experience, that trauma. I might be having difficulty focusing. So again, I think the PTSD happens more than we realize, unfortunately. And again, that traumatic experience could have been for me, or it might be for baby. If baby's in NICU, and that's a whole other discussion there, that those symptoms can linger. So I know that was kind of just a quick overview. I know it was a lot of information, but just kind of a quick, we could go into a lot more on each, but like we said in the beginning, these are why we're having these conversations. You know, we might hear of postpartum anxiety or depression. We think, oh, that's not me, or PTSD, that's not me. But then when we have these conversations, and again, we break them down and get more information, then it's like, oh yes, that's exactly what's going on. And this makes so much sense now. And so that's why we're here, is to have those conversations. And, you know, if anybody here listening, you know, if that's something that you're experiencing, or you know somebody, you know, the point of what, you know, one of the points that we're hoping to get across is that you're not alone. There is help. And sometimes we can feel like there's not help, or we feel like nobody else is experiencing this, or that I'm crazy and I can't tell anybody how I'm feeling because, you know, my friends won't want to be friends with me, or I can't tell my spouse. But you're not alone. People are experiencing a lot of the same things. And, you know, we with the Central Florida Postpartum Alliance can help with resources and information. And, you know, Postpartum Support International, if you haven't heard of that website, is a wonderful website with, you know, virtual support groups, and they have a provider directory. Again, I can kind of link some of the helpful websites at the end, but again, that you're not alone, and there's more and more people that are experiencing this. So I thank everybody for being here. Again, I know we're going to do question and answer, I think, at the end, but if something comes up or you have a question, just jot it down and then we can come back to it later. So thank you.
And then I'm Sammy, or also known as Samantha. And thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Kathy. I'm very relaxed after that practice. I am also a mom of 2 and a licensed mental health counselor and a certified birth and postpartum doula. Something that Jennifer said just really stuck out to me. It wasn't until after I finished my master's in mental health counseling, had a baby myself, and then learned about what postpartum depression was. Like, went through my entire education, and until I became a mom and experienced it myself. And I actually went quite some time before being able to say, oh, this is postpartum depression, and realize that's a problem. So here I am. I'm very grateful to do so. So I want to do an activity that is going to require unmuting yourself if you feel brave, or putting some words in the chat box. I normally do this in person, but we're virtual, and then I'm also in quarantine right now, so I can't call anyone in on me. So I was like, oh, maybe my daughter can help, but no, I am alone. So I am gonna share my screen real quick, and we're gonna do this together. I'm gonna draw this beautiful person hanging out right here. And they've got their arms wide open, 2 arms, just like right. So if you could share with me maybe some things that feel like different responsibilities or obligations that you may have as a human being, as a partner, or maybe as a parent, or just however you may identify. What are some things that you feel like are different responsibilities that you may have? Different stressors, maybe.
I'll jump in first. I would say I feel like I do a lot of upkeep of our home. So a lot of the cleaning, a lot of the, I guess, maybe more domestic responsibilities. And I also have 3 dogs that I am kind of the one that takes care of all of them.
Yeah, so we're going to do like upkeep of home and animals, right? 1 animal, 3 animals, 7 animals. It's a lot. What else?
I was going to say healthcare, making sure kids are safe and taken care of and healthy, and
Making sure kids, making sure ourselves.
Yep.
Looks like Kathy put in the chat cooking, cleaning, and laundry, and homeschooling.
So cooking, those are all separate, right? Cleaning, laundry is never ending in my house. I have no idea how that happens. Homeschooling. What else? You like my bricks? I've decided these are going to be bricks.
Yeah,
What else would be here? Working, right? Maybe financial stressors, whether it's paying for curriculum to teach your kids at home, or a roof over your head.
We also have a social director in there, which I love that title.
Okay, so the many hats that we may wear, our titles, managing different aspects of our life.
Staying healthy.
Yeah, just taking care of our health.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Maybe taking care of other family members, you know, taking care of sick parent or.
Yeah. Caregiving. Oh, what happened here? No, you're doing so good.
Anne says helping my daughter with her wedding. Whitney says exercise.
Yeah.
And Phyllis says cooking, laundry, caring for 6 guys in a group home with mental illness.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of caring for others, right? Wonderful. Maybe if there's 1 or 2 more that we could hear from.
Self-care.
Yeah, right. Making time for self-care. What would that even look like? Making sure we're bathing, brushing our teeth, right?
Praying, meditating.
Yeah, spirituality, silence, yoga. Like Kathy gave us 10 minutes that felt like, man, my body was like, oh, why don't you do this more often? What do you guys notice right now? What has happened to our picture, our person?
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, we can't even really see them anymore, right? There's so many bricks. And when I do this in person, it's cups. And typically, what do you think? If someone's holding all of those cups, what would happen?
You drop them.
Yeah. I was hoping. I'm like, man, you guys are all like superheroes. Every time I always drop them. And oftentimes so do my volunteers. Because we're human, right? Above all else, and we can only hold so much. We can only handle so much. And you guys just listed all of the things that we're tackling day to day, you know, trying to navigate in this world and trying to balance, right? And eventually it feels like too much and the cups fall. And oftentimes I ask, what would help with all those cups? What do you think would help with all those cups, those bricks, those burdens?
Maybe some extra hands.
Yes.
Extra help.
Yes, extra help, support. I saw Kathy said community. What was that, Jennifer?
Turn into an octopus and you have 8.
Yeah, if only we had, you know, the ability to shapeshift. Maybe that would be helpful. But yeah, community, help, support. We're not expected to do this on our own. We're not expected to heal on our own. We're not expected to exist and function on our own. And so a big thing for me on my own healing journey was learning self-compassion. And so how would you define compassion? Let's just start there. It's always easier when we don't talk about what it means for ourselves. So what is compassion?
That empathy that it's a reciprocal. You feel better when you give to others, and you just have that passion to help others, right, and be in their shoes, even or at least try to, and be supportive. And that has a positive, I used the word ripple effect earlier, negative, but it's positive, paying it forward.
Right. I like to think of it like on a spectrum, right? We have pity, we have sympathy, we have empathy, and then we have compassion. And that's like when we notice, we feel what someone else is feeling, and then we do an act of kindness. We do an act of service, an act of love, kindness, all the different words we can interchange, right? So we know what compassion is towards others. How do we show self-compassion? What does that look like?
Some things would be pleasurable to you, that helps you decompress, to help you balance, makes you feel good, feel happy.
Right. Self-care.
No guilt.
Right. Doing self-care, but without the guilt, which is a practice for sure. But yeah, right. Remembering that we're worthy and worthy.
Giving yourself permission to say no.
Yes, I love that one. Giving ourselves permission in general, giving ourselves permission to take up space, giving ourselves permission to say no, giving ourselves permission to just be. I love that. Anything else that would be practicing self-compassion?
I I think giving myself some extra understanding. I think sometimes I really push myself to go above and beyond and just saying, okay, I can just be here for a moment.
And so that's like the biggest thing that I have learned from self-compassion is it's when those are those like tough moments or the hardships, or maybe when I'm not at my best, that's when I have to practice self-compassion. That's when it really makes a difference to be able to say, okay, this is hard, or yes, I'm not, maybe I yelled at my kids and that's not what I'm wanting to do, or maybe I woke up late and I'm behind on my chores or whatever it might be, but being gentle, being understanding, creating some acceptance. I like to use the word radical acceptance, right? I accept myself in my best moments and I accept myself at my worst. There's that embodiment of acceptance. So a practice that I want to offer to you guys is of self-compassion is bringing our hands to our heart. Maybe just like how Kathy said, right? Just noticing, bring our hands to our heart space, our heart center. This creates oxytocin, just this gentle practice, bringing hands to heart, brings the love hormone, which combats adrenaline, cortisol, all those other hormones that we don't really always want flooding our system. So maybe bring our hands to our heart and taking a few breaths here. I'm going to bring in one of my little chimes. And then I'm going to repeat a mantra, and you can repeat to yourself or out loud, whatever feels comfortable to you after me. This is a moment of suffering. I am not alone in my suffering. This will pass. May I be gentle and kind towards myself. This is a moment of suffering. I am not alone in this moment. I trust that this will pass. May I be gentle and kind to myself. Taking a moment here, holding any of these words that really resonated or felt good to you, while connecting to your heart, maybe repeating just a few times to yourself. Taking a few breaths here. I like to kind of come and finish with giving myself a little bit of a squeeze. Maybe coming down to the side of my arm, really sending my physiological self the messages I'm safe, I'm held, I can do this. And this is a practice that I use daily. That helps me, right? Because it helps me know I can't control the storms, can't control the chaos or what's going on in my home, outside my home. And so therefore, I just have to be gentle, bringing that awareness. I'm not alone. This will pass. Everything is temporary. May I be gentle and kind towards myself. I encourage you to play with this mantra and create your own and practice it maybe over the next week or so and just see how that feels in the midst of the storm and maybe even after. Thank you guys. That's my bit.
Thank you, Sammy. That was wonderful. And yeah, love those chimes. Just amazing. So for those of you who joined after the introduction, my name is Nancy Layish, and I'm here to, in part, to tell my story with postpartum depression and anxiety. And my journey and all this began almost 30 years ago with the birth of my first child. And it started really toward the end of around labor for me. Most of the pregnancy was wonderful up until the end, when I developed a kidney condition that required me to be induced close to term. And let me tell you, you may have heard that the two worst pains for women are kidneys and labor, and I can attest that that's probably true, because I had both of them pretty much simultaneously. Labor went fine once I was induced, and gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. However, we noticed there was a problem. He was born with a birth defect on his foot called a club foot, which could not have been diagnosed in utero. So we were very unprepared for that. We required that he would require casts on his foot starting the day after birth, and would require off and on casting for about a year, and would require several different operations for the first few years of life. It was very difficult to take this all in, especially I was feeling very euphoric with his birth, and it really didn't dawn on me at the time the enormity of the care for the clubfoot until I got home from the hospital. In addition, everything was fine up until the time I was discharged, and I got this really, it was almost like a shadow of foreboding, and it was a lot of anxiety and some depression, and I just thought, okay, it's just now I'm leaving the bubble of the hospital and the care, and now the reality of being a parent is going to hit me, and I just assumed that was normal because some of it is normal. But soon after I got home, a bunch of factors and circumstances, which I call the perfect storm, happened very quickly. One, again, going back to the clubfoot, it started to dawn on me how much care that this was going to require. And I started to get really anxious about it. I was also unable to nurse, which was very important for me to do. I kind of defined my motherhood around it. And when I couldn't do it, I felt like a failure. I was just not making enough milk due to a previous surgery years ago. So that was devastating for me. In addition, my son was very colicky, and there was, needless to say, a lack of sleep in addition to the lack of sleep we would expect to receive as a new parent. And the lack of sleep really magnified and made everything, the symptoms worse. And so about 3 weeks into post-birth, I started feeling increasingly anxious and depressed, crying a lot. And it was just, it was terrible. It was like falling into this dark hole and feeling very helpless to get out. And I really felt like a huge failure at motherhood. And this is what I always wanted to do, be a mom. That more than anything in the world, I always wanted to have a family. And this wasn't what I expected. And sure enough, I started withdrawing from more activities. As Jennifer had talked about earlier, a couple of the symptoms of postpartum depression is withdrawal from activities, changes in sleep patterns, and increasing feelings of self-esteem, low self-esteem, and all those were happening in addition to the anxiety symptoms of fear and worry, all combined at once. And it was very debilitating. So it culminated one day when I was at my son's pediatric appointment, and the nurse practitioner asked me how I was doing, and I just lost it and burst into tears. And she said, it sounds like you have postpartum depression. And I actually, at that moment, I was so relieved there was a name for it, that when she explained it to me in more detail, that I wasn't crazy. This was actually something real that a lot of new parents and families went through. And again, it's just the sense of relief that I wasn't alone. And it really struck me how, like Sammy had mentioned, in all her education, all her education and work experience, and then having kids, she didn't know anything about it because it was never discussed in school or in real life. And with me, it was the same. I'm educated and went to graduate school. I got my degree in social work, clinical social work. It was never discussed, never had heard about it until after it happened. So that moment where it was diagnosed, well, it started my road to recovery. And I actively began seeking out support in the form of a counselor who understood something about perinatal mental health. And this was 30 years ago, which there were even fewer resources overall, although I was very lucky. This was in the Midwest where my son was born, where I'm from originally. And there happened to be some practitioners that did know about it. And actually the first one that I talked to didn't know about it and grouped it in with regular depression, and which it is not. Because it pertains, as we talked about, to the perinatal period, to pregnancy and postpartum. And that comes along with it its own inherent symptoms that may look like other diagnosis, but again, is inherently germane to the perinatal period. So I knew that was not going to be a good fit and found a counselor and therapist who was. Also, what I attributed a great deal to my recovery was a support group, which is very rare at the time. It was peer-led by other moms who had also experienced perinatal mood anxiety disorders. And I was very lucky to have found them as well, and also started taking medication. So those three treatments in one treatment plan were very important to my recovery. I came to realize later that what I experienced is not uncommon in terms of the risk factors, that these are very common risk factors in many cases of PMADS. Going back, that would be a sudden unexpected shift, a crisis such as a birth defect or a trauma in a child, in the mother or family's life, the inability to get adequate rest and sleep, a colicky baby. I also, one of the big factors is that if there's a family history of a PMAD, of a mental illness such as depression or anxiety, there's a 50% greater chance that during pregnancy or postpartum that the person would develop a PMAD. And that's what happened to me. I do have a history of depression and anxiety. So it did make sense as I learned this that this happened. But again, I did not know any of this until after the fact. One other major risk factor that I meant to add earlier was the transitioning from my old life to being a parent. This is very much underestimated, and it's very important that when we become parents, no matter how much it's described or how wonderful it is, you never really know. And the transition to becoming a parent is so enormous. And for me, along with everything else I was experiencing, it was very difficult for me to say goodbye to my old life and to start grieving for it and just going into a new life. I had to grieve my old life and accept that this is not how it's going to be anymore. And it was very difficult. So all these risk factors combine, in what I've learned, it's not surprising to me anymore that I developed postpartum depression and anxiety. And along with that, what exacerbated these symptoms and my experience was the perception of being stigmatized, which is what many people who are going through this are fearful of and or have experienced it. I was afraid that if I told anyone that I was experiencing this and I was so unhappy, they would think, well, what's wrong with you? Or just snap out of it, go outside, get some fresh air, you'll be okay. And that would further exacerbate the cycle of how I already was feeling. So I chose to isolate my feelings, not talk about it. Now I did have some wonderful support systems, I need to mention this too. There were family members that were very non-judgmental and very loving, which is so crucial. That's one of the core components of treatment. However it is, whether it's personal, family, friends, spiritual community, professionals, that support system is so critical in recovery. So with all this happening, I did recover. I actually had 2 more children, and I'm the proud mother of 3 kids. I do want to say, as a postpartum depression anxiety survivor, as is mentioned earlier, and as this is PSI's wonderful saying, you are not to blame, you are not alone, and with help you will get better. And I subscribe to that whole 100%. And like I said, if there's any real silver lining to what I went through, it's being able to help others and being able to help co-found this start this nonprofit, this amazing nonprofit, and to work with so many amazing people. Otherwise I would never have known about this if I had not gone through my experience. So I'm just so grateful to be able to pay it forward and be here tonight. And thank you again for allowing me to share my story and, again, bringing lightness out of the dark.
Thank you, Nancy.